my name is Sam, and thanks for checking out this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and give the video a thumbs up. So this week I managed to read 8 books, which I am really happy with. However, one of those books was a preview excerpt, so it was only 120 pages, and another one was a children's book. So, I mean, I count that all as one, but just so you guys, I have so many people every time I say how many books I read that are like, oh my god, I never am able to read. It's okay, it doesn't matter the size of the book. It's that you read it and that you enjoy it. So the first book that I read this week was An Alchemy of Masks and Mirrors by Curtis Craddock. This is the first book in the Risen Kingdoms series. This is also a debut work. This book was suggested to me actually by my friend Meg, and I'm really glad she did suggest it to me. It's such an interesting I loved the magic and everything in it. The general gist is there are these magical kingdoms, and one of the kingdoms starts off with the wife has a daughter, and she is born without magical abilities that normally they would be born with. And it starts off at her birth when there's a musketeer kind of involved, and it kind of fast forwards to when she's like a teenager, almost an adult age, and she's being married off, but there's like an assassination plot, and she's trying to balance like the politics between, you know, these two different places while still appeasing her father, who is still angry that she can't perform the magical duties that he wants her to, and her friend gets hurt. There's just some really, really interesting magic stuff going on. Probably the coolest thing I got out of this was like the ability to like use mirrors to travel. That is probably one of the coolest powers ever. Like, I mean, you could do so much damage with that. Like, and it could, I wonder you could do like reflection jumping too, because that's like kind of a mirror. Oh, there's just so many things that you could do with it. Easily my favorite part of this book was the relationship between our main female character, Princess Isabelle, and her kind of pseudo father figure protector, Jean-Claude, who is the musketeer. I mean, he is such a he cares and loves her so much and does everything he can to protect her. He puts himself in harm's way. He's dedicated to this girl and seeing her grow up and just wants her to be okay and wants her to get everything that she deserves. He's not okay with marrying her off to some douchebag. He like makes sure that he will follow her. He puts on a disguise to make sure that he can find out everything that he can if there's plots against her, and he's just always thinking of a way to protect her and ensure her safety, and it was just so sweet and heartwarming. Because her biological father is a king, he has this power called like blood shadow, where he essentially like just like intakes someone's soul and like makes them become a robot. And he does that to her best friend, and like he's just a crappy person and very power hungry, and he, you know, he'll barter her off, but he wants as much as he can get for her kind of situation. It's just so nice that if you have that kind of figure, she had a balancing out figure who showed her that, you know, love love and compassion is okay and acceptable, and it's honestly like the greatest feeling, and just their devotion to each other is honestly so amazing. My only problem with this book was it lacked in the world building. You know, there's floating cities and ships and everything like that, and you travel from one to the other, and there's like magics, like people jumping through mirrors and everything, but there's not a lot of world development. I think he focused a little bit too much on the character development and like the actual problem within the book, or the actual conflict within the book, that it really kind of, you know, it didn't take away from it, it just didn't elevate it to what it could have been. So I mean, like, I think the book is like it's just over 400 pages. I would have honestly preferred making it 500 pages and including the world development. But hopefully that will come with the next books, because I am definitely going to continue reading the series. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm really, really excited to see where the series goes. I do hope that maybe, like, I don't think I've ever actually said this, I don't love this cover. Like, it's alright. I don't love this. I don't think I'm going to go buy it because of the cover. So, I mean, maybe they'll do a mid-series cover change. Knock on wood, that will be an upgrade. That would be wonderful. This is something that I would enjoy rereading. Like, it is fantasy, but it's just fun and interesting, and like there's chaos going on everywhere, and the friendship, like parental kind of relationship that the two have is just goals. So like, the second book that I read this week was The Wicked Deep by Shea Earnshaw. This is actually an e-arc. So this book is kind of described, if you look at some of the descriptions on like Amazon and everything, as practical magic meets hocus pocus. Now, I haven't actually read Practical Magic. It was on my TBR for the month. because I wasn't expecting to get the arc, but I got the arc, so I was like, nah, I'll read Practical Magic later. But as a huge fan of Hocus Pocus, there are definitely some Hocus Pocus vibes. You know, there's the three sisters who were betrayed and come back. So The Wicked Deep is set in Sparrow, Oregon, I think it is, in, you know, present time. Our main character is living with her mom on an island right beside the small little town. It's a tourist destination in the summer because every summer for a couple weeks, at least 3 people drowned. The myth in the town is that the 3 sisters who were accused of witchcraft a couple hundred years ago during kind of the Salem witch trials were drowned, and every year in the summer they come back to get revenge, and each drowned 1 boy. To do this, they inhabit the bodies of 3 women in town, so you're like the whole book guessing who is being like, who his body has been taken over. I really liked that we got to switch back and forth. At the beginning of each chapter, there was like a couple pages on the 3 sisters like before they were accused of witchcraft and killed, and then you switch to like present time where, you know, things start to connect. It was honestly just a really enjoyable book for like the first like 3/4 of it. I enjoyed it like a lot, and then at the last quarter everything starts, like dots start connecting and like everything kind of gets wrapped up, and I actually cried at the end. I mean, like, it was just I'm really impressed, actually, in all honesty, for that to be a debut. But if you do like witchcrafty, Hocus Pocus, any of that kind of stuff in modern settings, what honestly tore my heart out was the romance. I don't even know quite how to explain it. It's kind of hard, and if once you finally read the book, you'll understand why it's kind of a triangle, I guess. But there is a romance, and, you know, things, I'm not a big fan of romance. Sometimes I feel like it can be abused by authors, but I actually really enjoyed it. It was a little insta-lovey, but I was really into, I was so shipping them, so I was like, all right, I'm in for this. I ended up giving this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm definitely going to be picking up a physical finished copy because the cover is so pretty, and I want to reread this, I think. I think it'd be a really good, like, Halloween-y time of year read as well. The third book that I read this week was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. This book was so cool. I loved it. I'm so happy I picked it up. There are so many literary figure name-dropping things in here that it's just, if you enjoy like history or books either way, or both, you will enjoy that part. So our main character, Mary Jekyll, has just lost her mother. Her father had committed suicide a couple years earlier before that as well. So she is left alone, and she finds out that all of the money that her family had been smuggled out by her father before he killed himself. So she is destitute. She has like 20 pounds in her bank account to her name, and she's a woman right like before the World War, so she can't really go anywhere to get a job. It's generally frowned upon. The economy's not great, so she can't even sell their house. So she is stuck. She remembers, though, that a couple years ago that her father's friend, Hyde, was wanted for murder. And so she thinks maybe she can go through and find him to turn him into the authorities and gain the reward money, and hopefully that she will be able to support herself that way. And when she starts doing that, she interacts all of a sudden with Diana Hyde. She finds out Hyde has a daughter, and Diana is probably me like, if I was set in this time period, Diana's basically me she is blunt and sarcastic, and like, oh my god, she has like 0 filter whatsoever. Like, it's hilarious. Her action, how she acts and everything is just immense. It's so much comedy, but like, it's just so funny. The book is kind of interesting too because you switch back and forth between like the plot going on, and then you find out that there are people, the women that these characters are actually writing the book. So you hear them kind of dialoguing while writing the book, and then they're writing the book. So it's you kind of switch back and forth. Along the way, we run into the daughters of Rapacini, Moreau, and Frankenstein. So all of these figures have children, and we find out that they've been manipulating these children genetically and biologically so that they all have like these weird, strange powers. You know, one of them is like pure poison. So if she's in the same room as someone, she can kill them just by proximity, and if she touches them, she generally kills them right away. So this whole book is trying to figure out, these people that are doing these experiments are part of the society, and they're trying to figure out why they're doing this. The best part of this for me was the involvement of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Yeah, they're in it too. Literally anyone you can think of in this time period is thrown in this book. Now, I don't think Sherlock Holmes and Watson were kind of written the same way as we think they are, of Sherlock Holmes being kind of antisocial and like vacant, but always picking up on things. But I'm actually kind of curious because our main character's name is Mary and Watson is involved. So, I mean, like, I don't know if that's where this is going. I don't know. But there's a sequel that's set to come out in 2018. I'm really, really excited about that. I honestly would pick it up alone just to hear more of Diana ranting and swearing and, like, and going off on people about sexism and, like, classism. And it's just, oh, she's just so, she's like that inner thought that I have when I read about things where I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of unfair for this people. She just says it in curses because she was brought up in a brothel. So I mean, it was just honestly such a funny book, and it was fun, and I whipped through it in one day. I read it on Monday after work. So overall, I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like the ending was a little bit like kind of dragged out a little bit. Like there was just too much like kind of info dropping and tying up all at once rather than casually done. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to pick up the sequel. The next book that I read this week was The Sweetest Kind of Fate by Crystal Sastari. This is also an e-arc that I got approved for. I honestly can't really say much about the book summary because it would kind of spoil you if you haven't read the first book. The first book is The Best Kind of Magic, and our main character has the ability to see people and sees, you know, who their one true, like, love is. And so at the end of the first book, she's in a romance with someone, but she sees, like, oh, she's not his one true pairing. And this is kind of the fallout of that book. This book is honestly just like the first one. It's light. It's, despite, like, what the summary is. It's light. It's funny. It's got the magic in a contemporary setting in a city. Like, it's in Chicago. And, you know, there's, like, a little bit of, like, her mom's backstory is brought more up to the forefront. And it was just really fun. My issues with this book were that I found the ending to be rushed. Like, there's this big build up to the ending battle, and it was just like one paragraph almost, it seemed like, and it was done. That was kind of it. With all the build up and kind of the trash talking that was going on, I was hoping for a little bit more. They also didn't really totally explain, like, how all the magic stuff that happened. At the end, you got to the end, and it was just like, well, sometimes fate is wrong. You're like, what? That's it? So I'm curious to pick up the final copy to see if that's changed at all, because I did find that a little bit of like a cop-out. Like, the author wrote the concept and was like, oh, I don't know how to finish this. Nonetheless, I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's a fun read for if you feel a slump coming on or you just want something light with some magic. The main character is very sarcastic and very blunt, and like she inner monologues a lot of things, which I always laughed at. Overall, I gave this book a 3.75, 4 out of 5 stars. And I'm definitely picking up a copy so that I can have both those really, really pretty covers on my shelf. The next book that I read this week was the preview excerpt I got for Sight Witch by Susan Dennard. This is the illustrated novella in the Wind Witches series, because we have to wait another year for Blood Witch, which I'm so frustrated with. I need blood, like, just need Blood Witch. Now, in all honesty, this book was just okay. It's only half of the book, though, so, I mean, like, I don't know if the beginning of this, the e-arc that I got is actually the beginning. If it is, I was a little bit lost. In all honesty, I didn't quite understand. I needed context a lot. Like, I kept, every page was like, is this going to get kind of explained a little bit? The ending, though, really did pick up. It kind of cut off when things started actually getting interesting, and I was like, of course they did this. So I'm definitely gonna, I'm so excited. Actually, the final copy of Sight Witch was on sale for Indigo this week, so I picked it up there. So I'm so excited to finally get my copy of it. I'm also really curious what the actual layout and illustrations are going to look like. In the bit that I did get access to, there didn't seem like there was actually an awful lot of illustrations, and it didn't seem incorporated all that well. It was just kind of like chunks everywhere, and there were several long sections without any illustrations. I was kind of expecting something more along the lines of like Language of Thorns, where there's like, it's built up through it to kind of coordinate with the story. But I mean, I don't even get to see what the illustrations were. So I'm just super curious to see what it's actually going to end up looking like, and hopefully this will hold me over until Blood Witch comes out, because, oh my god, I need to get Blood Witch. Come on, Dennard! The next book that I read this week was The Rebels of Gold by Elise Kova. This is the third and final book in the Loom Saga series, which if you have not picked up, get on it! The hard copies are all out, but I think Elise Kova said that there are paperback copies being released. Once again, I don't know that I can really give a summary of this without spoiling the other two books, but there's a world with like dragons, and there's like a dictatory politic battle going on with like the lower class have guilds, so they've kind of like split themselves up into those groups, and essentially they keep fighting with each other, and the dragons who are ruling this all are like kind of just like laughing because they're like, you guys can't even get your stuff together to come and battle us when we're like totally abusing your society and people and situations. So our main character, Ariana, is back with her BFF kind of protege, Florence, and they were split up in the second book, and Florence has grown an awful lot, and she gets a girlfriend in this. The romance with Florence is just so good. And it honestly just, her coming back with Ariana and having that romance that Ariana didn't necessarily like approve of, it just showed how much Florence grew in that time apart. Like you got to compare them how they were at the beginning and compare how they were at the end of this. Just like the other books, it is dark, steampunky, guild, alchemy, kind of Frankenstein-y like magic. We also get to see kind of like the chaos that is going on within the dragon community because of what happens at the end of the second book. I guess that's the only way I can say it without spoiling it. I enjoyed this just as much as the rest of the books. I'm really happy I own them because this is a series I'm definitely going to continue rereading. I just love these characters, Florence especially. Oh, I particularly really enjoyed how the ending came about with Ariana and Svare. Like, it wasn't a perfect cookie-cutter thing, which I don't really think would have worked with these characters, their morals, their goals as well. So it was just really well done overall. It's just so dark and awesome and, like, just sucks me in, and I get so excited about everything happening. So overall, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, just like the rest of the series. The next book that I read this week was Shadow Warrior by Tanya Lloyd-Kie. This is the children's book that I read this week. As the kind of sub thing, based on the true story of Fearless Ninja and her network of female spies. So this is set in Japan before Japan is a unified country, when there's kind of the infighting between each kind of region. Each region's like ruler, kind of head honcho, is trying to invade the others to take over. It's just kind of the power grab. And our main character at like 13, 14 or so, she trains as a ninja, and then when she comes home one day after she like finishes her training, her parents are like, oh, by the way, we've married you off to some like the region's ruler. So she ends up going there, and there's things happen, and she ends up having to look to someone else to continue living on, and she offers to start training women as like ninja spies. So she goes to town and finds, a lot of orphan children, especially because of all like the chaos and clashing going on. She finds them and trains them to become spies because no one suspects, the girl, farming or whatever, or like walking, or to be, doing anything suspicious. So, she teaches them how to pick up information. I really enjoyed the illustrations in this book. My issue with this, which brought it down, I don't know if it's going to be, I'm either at a 3 or a 4 out of 5 stars. My issue with this is the title. Like, this is for kids, too. That's my thing, keeping in mind. Based on the true story of a fearless ninja and her network of spies. And then at the end, where it says fact or fiction, it says, she was probably real. Like, I know what you're saying, like, she appears in literature after, and the stories and such are consistent. But you just put that on the title where kids are going to read that. I don't know if they're going to read the thing after the story that says fact or fiction. I just don't like kind of the optics of that. Like, again, keeping in mind it is for children. And the last book that I read this week was a reread for me, The Kiss of Deception by Mary Pearson, the first book in the Remnant Chronicles. I enjoyed this, but I was curious because I knew like the twist that was coming in it. But I still enjoy this book just as much as I did the first time. I love the geopolitics in this. It is really geopolitics heavy, and that with the romance, which I enjoyed as well. It just like ticked all the boxes for me. It's just like traditional YA fantasy, but it just did it for me. It's my tastes for sure. I really love our main character, Leah. I love the whole like that she's clearly interested in one guy, and then they're both interested in each other, and there's some other guy who like thinks he's involved in this love triangle, but really, I don't know if he is. And her friendship, Leah's friendship with her friend Pauline, it's just, I loved everything that was going on, and I'm so excited to continue rereading this series and get ready for Dance of Thieves to come out, which is set in the same world. So I am just so excited for that. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. Again, it just does everything for me. So those are all of the books that I read this week. Let me know in the comments section down below what you read this week, or if you read any of these and enjoyed them or didn't like them. Make sure to check the description box down below as well for links to all of my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you back.